recorded live from Studio 12A in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. You're listening to the Josh and Friends Podcast.
Hey-o! Thank you for tuning in to the Josh and Friends Podcast. I am your host. My name is Josh. And this week's guest is someone I met all the way back in grade school. The year was 1985. And some of the biggest movies at the box office that year were Back to the Future, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, The Goonies, Rocky IV, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And my new classmate, well, he was a little scrawny, tad bit awkward, but extremely intelligent. He flew a little bit under the radar, if you know what I mean. But it wasn't until a few years later when we really started hanging out, and he became one of my go-to buddies for spending our summers stomping around the woods and floating down the river. Oh man, good times out there. And this individual, he would go on to become a huge success story, designing countless bridges and other structures all across the United States. And he is here today to discuss it all. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome to the show the bridge master himself and my old buddy, Mr. Pat Gallagher. All right, Pat, how you doing, man?
Great, Josh. Good talking to you.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Like, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Wow. So how is it there? How's the weather look out there today?
Oh my gosh. I love living in Raleigh, North Carolina. My whole family does, except sometimes my kids want to go back, but they have no idea what they're going back to. So I love it. Raleigh has 3.5 seasons, and we just wrapped up our half season of winter. So
nice.
Bring on the summer, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it getting humid there? Or?
Oh,
Mild
in
or?
July,
Yeah.
August, September, it's, hell's front porch right here. So it's hot. It's muggy, and I love it.
Right on. Well, good. How long have you been there now?
About 5.5 years.
Wow, nice.
And moving here was a fabulous thing for my family. And my kids have no idea what 300 days of clouds does to you. And here it's 300 days of sun. And,
right.
So no.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Yeah, definitely different. You mentioned your family. How big is your family? I've seen pictures of your family online. Like, got a big family going on there.
Well, by today's standards, yeah. If you have more than 3 kids, getting a hotel is awkward, and we have 4. So. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Good. So everyone's doing good. Everyone's staying healthy.
Yeah, we are. COVID has not knocked on our doors, but that doesn't come without effort. So
yeah, good to hear, man. Man, how long has it been since we've actually spoken? I don't even know the last time I've seen you, to be honest.
The last time I remember seeing you was when we worked at Auburn City Parks in, I think, 1996.
That is wild. That is crazy.
I know.
Wow. Yeah.
And you were such a staple in my childhood. I mean, I spent a lot of time hanging out with you. Yeah. Whether it was at the river, in your garage, playing whatever that football game is on your computer. I mean, it was just...
you're talking about Tecmo?
Yeah. Because you were like my home friend, and then I had my school friend.
Right.
And like our lives, except at home, it was like always hanging out with Josh.
Right. Yeah, that is funny how that worked. I mean, especially during the summer, like that's like when kids are, I guess, hanging out with other kids the most, probably. I mean, yeah. Now Pat, were you born in Auburn?
No, I was actually born in the suburbs of Detroit. So my family moved around a little bit and then settled in Auburn.
That's right, the Pistons. You guys were like Pistons guys.
I was a Pistons fan. I was a Tigers fan.
Well, that's when they were good, though. Like, that's when the bad boys of the Pistons were around. These guys are jerks.
Well, it was hard to root for Seattle teams because they always lost.
Yeah.
I don't think Seahawks fans remember the days with like Steve Largent. They made it to the playoffs once. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, it was tough being a Seahawks fan back in the 90s. Yeah, it was really tough. So now we originally met in elementary school at Dick Scobee Elementary.
Well, North Auburn Elementary
yeah,
officially
exactly.
when we met. But yes.
Exactly.
I think it was 4th grade, Mr. Hall's class.
Oh, is that it?
And, well, that's the first. I've been trying to remember. I don't remember the first time we met, but I know that's as far back as I go in that neighborhood. I lived in another neighborhood.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense because I do remember you from that class because I was like trying to think the other day. I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember Pat like earlier than that, but I definitely remember Pat from that point on because wasn't that was the teacher that had those bike trips, right? Didn't he like take like everybody on these bike trips on those trails? Do you remember that? Did you?
I remember that. I went on them. It was fabulous.
Yeah, right. Like I was thinking. That's another thing I was thinking about, and I wrote a couple of these things down just because the stuff I remember from being a kid, especially in school, had nothing to do with school. I don't remember anything about actual learning. I mean, I'm guessing I actually learned stuff, but I didn't retain that information as memories in my head. So like, just to bring up a couple of these. So like in kindergarten, I had this teacher named Miss Moses. I don't even know if she's still around. But anyway, the only thing I remember about this Miss Moses lady was that I got in trouble for taking a blue key out of her collection or something like that. And I got in trouble for it.
How dare you?
Yeah, I know. What a jerk. I can't believe that. No, yeah. But then I had the same teacher for first and second grade, Miss Bobson. And all I remember is just doing art and the Pledge of Allegiance for some reason, which makes sense, I guess. You know, like you're...
Who cares about math?
Right. But then I get into third grade, and here's where stuff starts picking up. So Miss Phillips I had as my third grade teacher, she was a hippie. She was a big-time hippie.
She's the one who, like, loved John Denver, yes. And, like, John Denver came to our elementary school to visit with her. That's amazing that she did that. My son loves John Denver music.
Did you have Miss Phillips? Or did you just know of her?
Okay. Fourth grade, I had Mr. Hall, and then I had Miss Rumpf, and then Mr. Tossy.
Gotcha. Okay. You had the exact opposite teachers as me. Okay. So, yeah, I had Miss Phillips. And what I remember about Miss Phillips was, yes, she sang those John Denver songs. And I think that, I don't know if it was her class or Mr. Hall's that was sex ed. Mr. Hall definitely was not there for that. I think he, like, left the class. Which is awkward. Oh, gosh. And then Mr. Hall... I definitely remember that class with you, and I think Neil was in that class. Remember old Neil?
Yeah, Neil's a rough kid. I remember. I didn't know him really well, but he just seemed to have a toughness and a way about him that's like, dude, whatever. I'm back with you. You know. I tell my kids I was a nerd before nerds were cool, and he was not the kind of guy a guy like me wanted to hang out with.
Oh God, we were pretty tight back in those days. Then we kind of like drifted off, you know, kind of he started going one direction pretty hardcore, and I'm more into like music and sports and stuff like that, you know, pretty generic. Yeah. So
I don't know what he ended up doing with his life, but that I seem to recall that might have been part of it.
I have no idea. I really don't. I know that he still lives in the same place. And I think he's
done to see from your parents.
I think. Well, I don't know if he bought the place from. I have no idea. I just know that he lives on that same street. So I'd be speculating if I was throwing out theories and stuff like that. So, fifth grade. Who did you have again for fifth grade?
Miss Rumpf.
Miss Rumpf. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know anything about Miss Rumpf.
She was a new teacher when I was there, and yeah, she was a good teacher. I enjoyed her class. I had I was kind of an odd kid, and she handled me really well, and I have a few fun memories of her class, but I did good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I like
right on. Good. I had Miss Otwell. Do you remember Miss Otwell?
Oh, Miss Otwell I had her for math.
Oh, so okay. Literally the only thing I only remember, and this is bad, by the way, this is really bad, this is terrible, but I'm a little, we're kids. The only thing I remember is that she had this turkey neck, and I think that was another class I had with Neil, and he got in trouble for turning in this essay that was called, I don't know, it was like this essay about getting beaten by his parents or something like that, and he got in trouble because, you're not supposed to write about child abuse. But maybe they should have taken like note on that, because I have no idea. So they forced him to redo it, and then he turned it in, and it was like digging for worms in the backyard compost pile or something like that. But I just remember the year before, her name was Miss Stanway or something like that, and then and then she changed it, and I'm like, dude, you shouldn't be allowed to do this to kids. Like, I'm like, dude, unless you're changing it to Mrs. Smith or something, I don't know. Like, it's like I don't know. But I was thinking about this. There's no way she's still alive. That chick was an old lady, man.
She was old when I was in her fifth grade, in her math class.
I mean, she had to be, what, like 70 years old back then? I guess
if anybody over 30 at that age looked 70 to me, you know,
Right.
that was
and that was like in 1986 or 87 or something like that. So she has to be over 100 years old now.
I think so. I remember I was in her math class. I was in honors math since, I don't know, birth. I'm an engineer now.
Right.
But she would make us do really hard math assignments because it's honors math. And I remember one time my mom wrote a note to her and had me take it to school saying, "Stop making my son's homework so hard." And so I gave it to her, and I don't know what came of it, but, I'm sure she was really mad at that because, she was like old school,
right.
World War II vet type tough. And, here I am,
Right,
11 years old in math.
Was there a lot of people in honors math class?
Well, I mean, it was a full class. I mean, I think it was a case that they had to, split the herd. Half of you in a good, half you in the hard math class, half you in the easy math class. And I was in the hard math class.
I'm definitely in the other class then. There's a reason why we didn't see each other much in elementary and junior high. You're in the honor classes. I was not, but we ended up hanging out after. But anyway, yeah. So just to finish this up, so you had Mr. Tossi. I just remember Mr. Tossi kind of looked like a hippie back from the '60s, but an older hippie. I don't know if he was. Yeah. What do you remember about Mr. Tossi?
Well, I as a teacher, I don't remember a whole lot about him as a teacher. I mean, he was a nice guy, a good teacher, but I remember my last interaction with Mr. Tossi really well. It was there was some girl who was interested in me in like 7th grade, and her and I went to my old school for some reason because I lived like next door for a while, and she sat on my lap the whole time I was talking to Mr. Tossi.
This is scandalous.
Yeah, well, it was weird for me. It was weird. The whole thing was, I'm an adult now. Looking back, it was totally weird. But that was my last interaction with Mr. Tossi. Was a girl sitting on my lap in his classroom, after school hours. What was I doing there? Wow. And then what was that whole thing? I don't even know now. I'm still confused.
So this is Mr. Tossi, not Mary Kay Letourneau's office, right? Just joking.
Right.
Yeah. No. So yeah, I had that Mr. I think his name was Mr. Wills, right? Like he was the other 6th grade teacher.
Mr. Wills. Yeah. He was also the honors math teacher.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
But he was gone for like most of the year.
Oh.
There was a lady who took his place. Miss Hofgard, I think it was.
Oh, vaguely remember.
Remember that?
I mean, I should. He had the class.
He was there like most of the school year.
Right. But again, this is not what I remember. What I remember about that guy was he would always take this, I think he would hand out dictionaries, and there would be like groups of us in the class. And he was so schooled with the English language that he would have these contests where he'd be like, hey, if anybody could stump me on any word, definition, pronunciation, spelling, whatever it is, stump me. So everybody would try to pick out words that we could, stump him, which is a lot of words when you think about it. I mean, like, it's pretty impressive. I mean, I don't know
who's ever read the dictionary.
Right.
I haven't.
Yeah. So he studies the dictionary apparently. But yeah, so that was the thing I remember about him. So we didn't really start hanging out. I think it was around like 1989 or 1990 or something. I'm fairly sure I know the year because everything else that ever happens, it's because of the music that was going on at the same time. So
I'm with you there, man.
Yeah. So like, it's funny because I remember you had like Bart Simpson shirts that you used to wear, and that was big. That was big at that point in time. The Batman movie had just come out like that summer, maybe the summer before or whatever, but that movie was huge for a while. Yeah. But Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation and MC Hammer's Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him. Those were big. And I remember
man, now you're taking me back. I remember those days.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yep. And I remember those. And you also, I think you had, the Lisa Simpson or the Bartman CD or something like that.
The CD. I played that to my kids.
Yes. So
I played the whole thing, like all 12 songs.
That's awesome. So yeah, isn't that fun? That's what I remember. But I don't know. I really don't remember how we ran into each other. I mean, initially to hang out like at the, during the summers and stuff like that. But we spent, I just remember most of our time was like, we were bona fide river rats, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough of the river. And I mean, you were all in. It was just nonstop exploring down at the river, like whether it be like hiking through the wooded parts of the wherever it is.
Duck Island, Isaac Evans Park, where the rapids were, jumping off the bridge.
Yep.
I remember my mom would drop me off us off at Highway 18 Bridge.
Yes.
And we'd float miles through wilderness home.
Yes.
Who does that anymore?
Oh, no. Well, and it's funny too, because literally when we would get dropped off down there, it would be like, we might have like a tube, but we definitely have shorts. We have our shoes, and I think maybe like a mask or something like that. But that's it. We wouldn't bring like coolers of anything or anything like that. That holds us back.
Yeah, and it was we did it on a hot day of 75 degrees.
Right. No water, no food. We're literally going like 6 or 7 hours straight with like nothing. And I'm like, how is this even possible? Like, I mean, I think about that today, and I'm like, oh man, I go a few hours without food, and I'm like, man, I'm starving. I'm thirsty. I'm parched, and I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. Like, isn't that weird?
Well, I don't know about you, but my waistline isn't as thin as it was back then anymore.
Oh yeah, no.
So maybe that says something.
Yeah, you were like a stick, man. You know, we had some little layers of fat on me and the other guys, but you didn't have any. You were like 0.1 body fat, and I could still see you shivering right now. Like in my head, I could still see you shivering, and it'd be nonstop. Like
I'm cold thinking about it.
I would get worried. I'm like, dude, are you all right? You're like, I can't. And I'm like, holy Jesus, dude! Oh my God. Yeah, so no, that's a real thing, dude. I think you like talked about. He's like, I think I'm like hypothermia. I'm like, yeah, you're all right. You're gonna be fine. Just get in. You'll get used to it.
Right. You'll get used. Everybody said you'll get used to it.
Yeah.
I never got used to it.
No, that's so funny because like you would get like better inside, but it's like when you get out, that's when it's like, oof. It's so bad when you get out.
Oh my gosh, the breeze hits you, the cold air.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. So
yeah, tell me about it, Mister. I have natural insulation. Yeah, empathy with me here. Thank you.
Yeah. But just back to the music though. So like when we were talking about those bands that were coming out, like MC Hammer and Janet Jackson, those are huge acts that were out at that time. I remember. Right. I also, what I always like about people. I'm drawn to people that are naturally curious, and you clearly are. I mean, look where you are. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you went into like engineering and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but yeah, you're naturally curious, and I think that you were in band too, right?
Yeah, I did band.
Okay, so what instruments did you play?
College and high school. Well, okay. I played a whole lot of them.
Okay.
So I learned the saxophone at first. Well, actually, 5th grade I did the clarinet, and then I did the saxophone. And then sometime in junior high, I learned how to play the trumpet. And then I realized all brass instruments are mechanically similar. And once you learn one brass instrument, if you can figure out how to read the music of the other, you can play them all. And so I played the trumpet, the trombone, the baritone. I did the tuba once. I never did the French horn, but because it's left-handed, it's weird. But I did the saxophone, trumpet, trombone, baritone, and tuba. And now I do the guitar.
Oh, right on. Awesome. Yeah. I don't know if I introduced you to this stuff, but maybe a little bit before this, my dad got me into the Beatles, and I started listening to the Beatles a lot. And then it kind of moved into more the brass kind of bands like Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I remember playing some of those for you, and you're like, oh, dude, I'm really liking this because they're incorporating more diverse musical styles into rock and roll.
More elements of band.
Yeah, right. So I remember you really getting into that, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, man. Like he's like super like curious and fascinated with different stuff, and it was kind of cool sharing that kind of stuff with you. And then like like you said, you're like playing like the Simpsons blues kind of thing. And did you ever look up who did the actual instruments on those, or you just enjoy the music?
No, I never looked into that. There's one of those songs on that CD where Lisa Simpson plays a saxophone. It just is awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Even now, I'll play it just because it's so cool. I don't know why. So I'm probably getting off topic.
No. Yeah. So that's kind of like where I always came in, where like I love listening to music, but then I'm like, now when I read about who did that actual music, you know what I mean? It's clearly not, the actress who does Lisa Simpson, but some wonderful studio musician is probably doing that. And I'm always fascinated with all these behind the scenes people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's always reminded me. And again, when you brought up the Pistons earlier, that's right around the same time as the Pistons when they're good. So that I know it has to be 1990 that we really started, hanging out and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
For such a regular part of my life, the beginning and end are so vague. I don't want to say end, but the stepping in and stepping back.
Right.
Is so vague. But when you were in my life, it was so intense and so dominant. It's just, I tell my kids about you and stories we did, and
that's awesome.
They know who you are, and they've
what
never even met you. So
yeah, you know what it's kind of like too. It's kind of like. This is why I really like this movie, but it's almost like the movie Stand By Me. You remember that movie, that old movie Stand By Me? So like these kids are they're going on a hike to find this body, but along the way they're just, having these adventures and stuff like that. So we were always hiking around and walking all over the place. I mean, cause we're that age where, we weren't really, it was right before we were driving and stuff like that. And we still hung out when, into our driving years and stuff like that. But you know what I mean? We're always walking around or floating in the river. And I swear, God, some of the places we went to, the Green River Killer had to have dumped bodies in some of these areas that we went to. We were in some shady, desolate places.
I swear somebody found a body under the footbridge one time. I don't know where I heard it, but I remember underneath the footbridge, we walked down from the park side, there was this little shelf of concrete that was part of the bridge footing, and somebody I heard tucked the body under there.
Oh my God. I remember.
Oh yeah.
I went diving down there one time and we found a bunch of bones.
Oh my gosh.
And we were like, what are these bones? Does anybody, I mean, they're rather large. And the people were like, oh, those are cow bones. And I'm like, are you sure?
Where's the farm?
Yeah, I'm like,
apartments over here.
I don't know what a cow bone looks like, opposed to a, human bone at age 13 or whatever the hell. I can't remember how old we were, but yeah, no. And that's another thing. I mean, floating down the river, there's pretty much anything you could think of, we've pulled out of that river at one point or another.
Yes,
money, lots of lures, and just anything you could think of. Bikes, skateboards. I mean, literally anything. It was almost like, I don't know, it's almost like going to a thrift store that nobody else is ever going to get to experience, because who's down at the bottom of a river with a mask, floating in rapids and stuff like that? Nobody. It's us. It's the river rats.
It was the river. Yeah, it's true.
And by the way, I always call myself a river rat, so I'm proud of the term, because that's people go to I'm going to the lake, and I'm like, the lake. There's no action at the lake, man. It just sits there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action in the river.
We didn't have boats and water skis. That's why we didn't have money.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's another thing that I wanted to get into. So basically, we had to find things to do. Right. There wasn't
the video games were kind of at their beginning, and I've never really been into video games. Even now as an adult, I still see them as kind of a child's toy. And just, I'd rather go out and do something with my life and see something and experience something. And I'm glad. I mean, you and I grew up in the last era where kids just played outside and did whatever they wanted to until they came home. And thank God for that. Cause man, I would not want to do that.
I mean, think about it. Pretty much everything we did back in the day involved exercise, and also some of that really has to do with we didn't grow up rich. We were clearly not, we were not rich people. So like you said, there was no real, there was video games, but they'd kind of just started making those home consoles and stuff like that. Sure, there were movies that you could rent, but there's also no cell phones. We didn't have computers, I mean, there were computers, but they didn't have internet.
They weren't for entertainment. They were kind of, for processing data, which
exactly.
Who does that anymore?
Yeah, exactly. So our main hobbies involve going swimming, going hiking to go swimming,
jumping off the bridge, riding bikes.
Yep, throwing rocks at ducks. Which, by the way,
throwing rocks. That was the thing, man. That was
so bad.
That was fun. It was just terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. But it's it's again, what am I going back to? I'm like, okay, well, shit, I'm bored. Well, there's a rock, and look at that, there's a duck over there. It's bad, but I don't know. Burning ants with magnifying glasses, and
Oh man, done that, yeah.
Street football. Did you go? I think you went with us when we would tie the ropes on the back of our bikes and we would be like surfing on the back with a skateboard. Do you remember doing those?
Yes, I've done lots of that.
Those are awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Those are fun, man.
Football in the street, basketball at Neil's house, basically, I think is what the hoop was. But that was.
Yeah, it almost, like you said, all of it involved exercise. Because again, we had to make up. We were like, shit, I don't know. I remember I was telling somebody this before. I knew kids that were getting, every He-Man action toy or every, I don't know, what else was out? G.I. Joe, everything, And I would be like, you know what? I get some of those, which I still have some of those toys now because I think that's part of the reason why is because I didn't get all those. So I'm like, well, when I did get it, I'm keeping it. So, because I have like this old Transformer, and people are like, whoa, dude, you still have that? And I'm like, yeah, I still have it. But there's this, I used to like pick up like a piece of bark, and I'm like, dude, this looks like the Millennium Falcon. And I'd be like just flying this thing around the house. And then I'd be like, what the hell am I doing? I go, oh, I'm using my imagination. Okay, well, there you go.
Oh, who would have thought? Yeah.
And it was fun. It was fun.
My brother had G.I. Joes, okay? And I told him he was playing with dolls.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's another thing that you and I had in common was you and I had these younger brothers who were like the cool kids. And you and I weren't the cool kids, but we had younger brothers who were like the cool kids. So I always thought that was kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I was never the cool kid. Right. But my brother, he still is the cool guy.
Is he?
He's 43 years old, 6'1" and buff, lift weights.
Wow.
He's. Do you ever see my brother? He's ripped.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember him, but I don't remember him always being around because I think he was out doing stuff with cool kids.
Right. Playing basketball, for the school team.
Right. Yeah, that's funny, man. Yeah. So
my brother actually took up surfing in Washington State, which is freezing cold to do. Because he sucked at it. Yeah. And he loved the challenge of getting good at it.
Is he still with that? Is his girlfriend Casey back in the day? Or?
Yeah, his girlfriend since like 7th grade is Casey Sussner, and he's been married to her since 2001, and they have a beautiful daughter together.
That is wild. Wow.
I couldn't talk to girls in 7th grade. He married his 7th grade girlfriend.
I just remember she was hella cool because like I think she started right around the same time like Woody and Brent and myself started at UPS with her, and she was like, I'm gonna be a driver, and we're like, damn. And then she's like became a driver. I was like, wow, all right. It's crazy.
She grew up wanting to be a UPS truck driver, and she is.
That is crazy.
She's gonna retire with a great pension, I'm sure. So
that's wild.
She's still doing it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. I really always respect there's a handful of people, including yourself, that I just always remember like, I'm interested in this. This is what I'm gonna do. So another thing that was like funny, just to stay on kind of like the topic of families. One of the funniest things about you was that you had this dog, and this is hilarious. So Pat, what was the name of your dog?
You're probably talking about Rambo.
Yes, Rambo.
The big German Shepherd.
Yes. So you had this, and it was like this big German Shepherd. And the reason why this dog was so hilarious to me is because German Shepherds, like, normally have that reputation for being kind of like,
kill you. Yes. About them.
Yes. But he was literally the opposite. Still to this day, I've never seen a dog that was this horrified of humans or just anything. Like something would drop and he'd be like, oh God. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man. Like, whoa. It's like, I remember this one time you came over to my door. I don't know if you remember this, but it's great. You came over to my house and you knocked on the door, rang the doorbell or something like that. I opened the door. All I did was open the door and I was like, hey, and you're like, hey. And I just heard like the ring of, I think you were holding maybe the collar or something like that of your dog. And I looked down, and right when I looked down, I made eye contact with your dog, and boom, gone. Just gone. Just come. And I was like, oh my God. And you're like, okay, hold on. I'll be right back. And I was like, what's going on? And you're like, and you came back like 20 minutes later. You're like, he ran all the way home. And I go, oh my God. It was like, you lived like, I don't know how many miles away. He ran
It
all
felt
the
like
way home.
5, but it was probably like 3 blocks.
Right. He ran all the way home. I was like, holy crap. That is crazy. Was that like a rescue or something? Or did you guys have him from?
Actually, we paid to get Rambo from a breeder, and my parents did. But Rambo was like the runt of the litter. He was really skinny, really, for a German Shepherd, he had a lot more black. No, but Rambo was a different dog.
That was awesome. I mean, he's so nice. It was just that, it was funny because he was so scared. I was like, looking back now, I'm like, oh man, did something happen to the dog? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, it just sometimes, the animals are.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we actually worked at the parks department in Auburn. Like you said, this is like the last. It's like the last time I remember you. I've talked to you here and there just briefly, like a couple sentences or something like that, on texts or Facebook or whatever. But yeah, you worked at the parks department, and it was funny because I remember you not meshing well with their initial laid backness.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. I still don't do that.
It was really funny. So, dude, Pat, like I just remember there was this episode that I talked to with Lee about like work experiences, and I remember I go, man, when I first worked at the parks department, it took me a little bit to get into their groove because everything was slowed down like at least half. Oh, yeah. So I just remember when you're there, you're like, lunch would get over and you're like, okay, and you like stand up and everyone's like, what the hell is this guy doing? Who's this new kid and what is it? Why is he standing up? We don't get up until like 45 after. What's going on with him?
That was weird. Yeah, I remember one time we were like we were weeding an area at a park somewhere, and it started off with like 3 of us, and it was a big project. So they ended up bringing like 10 of us. After about 15 minutes, we're all standing around talking to each other, getting absolutely nothing done. It was literally standing there holding a shovel, and I thought, I can't do this. Summer's over. I'm out. I'm good.
No, and there was like this one time. Remember who was the guy? They ended up pairing you with this guy that was like similar minded, like he was all hustle. Like I can't remember his name, Frank or something. I can't remember his name.
The guy from California who was like an arborist.
Yes, that's exactly who it was.
I almost quit college to do that. He inspired me.
He was. Yeah. You guys really, honest to God, like had that same mentality. We're like, okay, well, let's go out and get stuff done here. And everybody else is like, I'm looking at the boss man. All I'm doing is staring at the boss man, and whatever he says, I'll do. But if he's not going to move, I'm just going to chill here for a second. And and that guy, like, you would be like sitting there and you'd literally stand up and you'd be like, all right, like kind of like shaking your keys. Okay. And everyone's just staring at you like, yeah, what's this guy? Who's this guy? And then they look at me and I'm like, hey, whoa. I just recommended, that this place is hiring and you're I just remember that, dude. It was so funny.
You made us hire Gallagher. What's wrong with you, Josh?
I just remember you get annoyed at them, not like the other way. It was. I think it was more that you were getting annoyed at them than they were getting annoyed at you. They were kind of like, in shock, like, what part-timer does this?
I think I was probably just bored. I mean, how long can you sit there and talk about nothing?
Oh, and half the time they wouldn't. Remember, like, we'd just be sitting there and be like, okay, well, yeah, okay. I guess I'll
paid $6 an hour. I guess let's do something with it. But if they just want to sit there and twiddle their thumbs, I guess. I mean,
oh god,
it's so ironic that that was my introduction to government work. Yeah. I spent most of my career working for the DOT.
Oh, how many years did you just work that one time, or did you work other years there? Did you ever go back there?
No, it was 97. I only did it 1 year because 98 I did a summer internship. In 99 I did another summer internship with engineering stuff.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I was only there one summer, and I'm not sure they would have wanted me back for a second summer. So I still had those park staff T-shirts too for like 20 years after that.
Oh, dude, I used to when we'd play intramural football at the college, I would hand those shirts off to everybody because I had so many of them. They would give you like 5 T-shirts when you started or whatever, and I worked there for like 3 different times. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll give these out to the guys on my team. So we kind of like had a uniform. It was ridiculous.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But so Pat, I remember like, now getting into like kind of your career. So like, I remember you, as I mentioned, like you were always fast. Like, we would float under a bridge and you'd be staring at it.
I think that bridge at Isaac Evans Park, had on some subconscious level probably had an influence on my thinking because I understood it. I don't know why. But the cables and the tension and I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like, cause I mean, and then we go to the Highway 18 bridge and like, did you ever jump off that bridge?
Not the high one, no.
Yeah, I was like, man, like there's like some of my friends that are jumping off this sucker, and it's like, boy, if you slip and fall, like that's a highway up, man. Like,
yeah, I've done dumb things like that later in life, but back then I haven't.
Right. Yeah, I'd be one of those guys, kind of like just sitting there eating popcorn, watching the people jump off, and I'm like, well, if anything, I'm gonna see someone slip and fall into, because like remember there was like a little hole that you could jump into, but like around it was like kind of like clay that was like really not deep. You could like literally walk up to it, it'd be like up to your like neck, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not into physics that much, but I know that if you're jumping that high off of a bridge and you miss that little hole, it's not going to end up too well. Yeah. So now you ended up going to Wazoo.
Yes, sir.
So you ended up going to Wazoo.
Go Cougs.
Yeah. So what made you decide on going to that institution?
Well, okay. So I got accepted to the University of Washington after Green River Community College and also Washington State. I wanted to go to Washington State because I just wanted to get away, and I didn't want to get away from like problems. I just wanted to see something else.
Yeah.
And going to the UW, it was 20 miles from my house. It was basically the same town almost. I mean, Washington State was so different, and I guess like that wandering spirit.
It's funny because like if you talk to people that are out of state, they think like Washington State, they're like like right down the road, right? Like they're kind of like like no, they're not, and they're vastly different. Like one of them's almost in Idaho, and then
they're different in climate, they're different in culture, they're different in everything. And looking back on my life, that was one of the best decisions I made because it really expanded my worldview. And I met my wife there. I know this is a religious show, but certainly my faith has deep roots at Washington State, and I didn't go there as a religious person, but I certainly left as one. So how did you meet your wife? Did you meet her at like a church service, or how did you end up meeting her? Oh, okay, let me tell you, I've had two girlfriends in my life, both named Sarah, and I married the second Sarah. So I was okay. This was after my conversion moment, if you will. There's a bunch of guys looking to have a roommate, bring another roommate into their house. It was a 6-bedroom house, 6 guys. They needed a 6th person, and so my friend Matt invited his girlfriend to go camping at this cabin on Moscow Mountain, and also me. Well, his girlfriend invited this girl named Sarah to go with her. So it was Matt, his girlfriend, Sarah, my now wife, and then myself. And we met there. I was dating the other Sarah at the time, and I met my future wife, and sparks were going, and it was just like, man, she's a lot of fun, and it was going on her end too. And I was like, I went home, I dumped my other girlfriend, and I asked her out.
Oh wait.
And so we met on Moscow Mountain.
So okay, so Pat, the other girlfriend that you were dating previously, she was still back in like the West Side. Or,
yeah, she lived in Woodinville.
Oh, okay. So I get that. All right, yeah.
The point is, I met my wife on Moscow Mountain, and I proposed to her there. And I've done plenty wrong in my marriage, but one of the things I nailed was the proposal. And so yeah.
What did you do? What did you do for the? Wait, are you gonna yada this proposal that you did, or what did you do for the?
If you want to hear the story, I'd be glad to tell you. Yeah. So. My wife and I are both type A firstborns, used to dominating our life. And so it'd be common for us in college to go to this cabin on Moscow Mountain with a bunch of friends, have a good camping time in the cabin, spend the night, and then go home the next day. Well, the week after college ended, I told my wife-to-be, we're going to go camping in this cabin for the weekend. How about you drive out and see me? She graduated college a year before me also, but she drove out to see me in Pullman. we went up this cabin together, and like the weekend before, there was like some storm or something that like knocked down a bunch of trees on this logging road. So in her mind, she's going up to this mountain to go camping for the weekend. In my mind, I'm going up there to propose to her. I got the ring. I asked her parents. I did all the things a good guy should do. And we get to the last switchback, and you can't go around. You can't keep driving up the mountain to get to the cabin. So we parked the cars. It was getting late. And now, church is a part of our life. So we weren't going up there to, sleep together. It was going up there I was going to propose to her. We're going to come back and leave.
Oh, okay. So it's getting late. Okay, gotcha.
So she insisted that she lugs all of her luggage up this little hiking trail to get to the cabin. I'm like, no, sweetie, leave it there. I'll come back and I'll get it later. Knowing there's no coming back to getting it. So I was going to propose to her. And so she gets up there. Her and I both get to the top of this little hiking trail to the cabin. And there's my friend Todd and his future wife, Kelly. And inside, they had prepared this beautiful candlelight steak dinner, romantic. Everything was wonderful. Wow. And I got down on one knee. I bought a bunch of those Vineco Valentine's candies, whatever they're called, sweetheart candies. Uh-huh. And I picked out the lovey-dovey ones, and one of them said, "Marry me." And
wow,
I got down on one, very traditional, and
awesome.
Of course she said yes, and that was it. So.
Awesome, that's a cool story, man.
Yeah, and it was the same place we met, and when we met, it was a very defining moment, and it was beautiful.
That's cool, man. I like it. I always like hearing stories like that. Those are always fun. Hearing stories about how people met. So that was cool.
So, and our honeymoon was nice. Dating was good, and then we have a fabulous friendship now. 20 years of marriage is lots of lessons I could tell you, but it's probably not what the show is about.
Awesome, man. Well, so you went to Wazoo, or for people that aren't familiar, Washington State University, and what was your study there? What was your major?
I decided in high school I wanted to be a bridge engineer. So I was studying civil engineering with an emphasis in structural design.
Gotcha. Now, just for people that aren't familiar, because I'm very fluent in this subject. I know exactly what we're talking about, but what exactly does an engineer do?
Well, at the most broad level, an engineer is a problem solver, and they apply science and mathematics to solve real world problems. Specifically, a bridge engineer, there's lots to it, mm-hmm. but what I specifically do is I design the bridge, meaning I pick the size of the rebar, how big are the beams, how big are the flanges, how thick is the deck, all the inner workings of a bridge that you don't see that are essential to hold it up. I run the math and the modeling to determine those things, and then I assist the draftsman to prepare plans and specifications that the contractor will come from.
Yeah, so you're definitely what's funny is that you say that. This just reminds me of a story. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But we were playing baseball this one time, and there's no way you remember this, but but you've always been a really smart dude, but sometimes you don't have a filter on your, like, sometimes when you think you're thinking, but it comes out of your mouth. Has anybody ever told you that before?
No, Josh, I've never heard that ever. No, I finally found those filters about 10 years ago. And I was kind of thinking that might have been where this conversation was going to go. But
no. So
I said some really dumb things, but I finally grew up, is my message.
I haven't even said anything yet. No, so like
I can imagine though. What dumb thing did I say? Please, Josh, enlighten me.
No. So you remember, like, my buddy Lee? He used to work at the Mariners, and he had these connections where if you worked at the Mariners, like, he would go retrieve baseballs when they would like be knocking them into the stadium. So he would just have, throw them in these bags, and then we would go and play home run derby. You remember playing home run derby and stuff like that? We would just go hit balls and stuff like that. And there was this one time, I think it was the first time that you had met him. So you didn't know anything about him, right? So like, you just thought he was like this dumb, and he would probably go, it's just probably looked like some dumb idiot. But you were walking right in back of him. I wasn't near you guys, but you were walking right in back of him, and he was like walking in front, and you're like, and you go, all bronze, no brain. And Lee's like, what the fuck? What the, did he just, and like, he kind of was like, yeah, he didn't say anything. I don't think he said anything. But then he goes, dude, your buddy, he said, you know what he said to me? And I'm like, no. And he goes, and I go, wait, did he say that like to your face? And he was like, no, I don't think he even meant to like say it out loud or anything like that. And I was like, All right. So I think that was like your first introduction, or that was his first introduction to you. But I was like, but to me, I'm like, Pat would always say stuff like under his breath, like just talking. But it was kind of funny because like, it's really funny to me because you and Lee are two of my smarter, like more of my intellectual friends. But Lee, you know, he played baseball back in the day. He was, you know, he never put out that vibe. You definitely always had that vibe. You like people, there's no getting around it. You are a smart dude. Like, and I always knew that. I mean, like you'd be always mathematical and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Pat. So you're gonna have to dumb it down for me, buddy. I could maybe tell you about music and where something came out or what year it came out, but that's about all I'm good for over here. So, but yeah. So anyway, that nice little story that just popped into my head.
Well, it's interesting that you remember me that way, because I remember me as somebody totally different.
That's not how I remember you. That's remember, just one snapshot. That was one snapshot in my head.
I remember everything.
And by the way, I don't have to put that in there.
But that's what.
I just thought it was kind of funny
you can put that in there. It's fine. I'm all grown up. I can handle it now. Yeah. Actually, I'm very comfortable with my past. And
yeah. No, well, hey, listen.
I was an awkward kid. And I think that awkwardness gave me my adult.
I have this conversation a lot. Like, if you grow up and you're the same exact person that you were, that's not a good thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to a certain extent, like, you know.
Yeah, you failed.
I mean, you're like, like I'm talking to you right now, and in a sense, it's like we're back in, you know, 1988 or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, you're clearly a different guy. I'm a different guy. You've changed and you've evolved. It's always good to evolve. So if people go through life and they're not learning anything, there's a problem. And I don't
agree. There's all those awkward times I had, though. I look at that as, you know, all those weird moments. I look at those as, you know, things to be proud of, because I learned how to mature, but I also learned how to handle adversity, failure, rejection, you know, all the things kids struggle with nowadays. You know, I faced those things too.
Yeah.
And I just figured it out. I don't know how, but it made me a good man. So
yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Like and by the way, just for the record, just because Lee might listen to this, but Lee didn't think of anything of it. I was the one that was like, what? He said that? Oh, it made me cringe. I was like, no, he didn't say that. Cause like, I was like, yeah, dude, you got to meet Pat, and like Lee, or Pat, you got to meet Lee, and blah, blah, blah. Like, we're going to go blah, blah. So like, he still probably doesn't even think about that moment. It's like one of those moments that I remember. Cause like, but, and again,
it's weird, you know?
It's like a nothing. It's like really like a nothing on the scale of whatever. But it just kind of reminded me, it's kind of funny that like little teeny, that's why I'm doing this show, by the way. Just to remember weird moments that people have together. You know what I mean? It's like, it's fun to look back.
That's what I like about your show.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like a little special show just about a window into my childhood.
Yeah. It's kind of fun, right? It's kind of like a time capsule. But yeah, it's kind of fun.
Which is exactly what Josh Matlock would be doing at his age. This is fabulous. It's right up your alley, man.
It really is. I really have been doing this like my whole life. Like I did a college project where I put together this list of, it was from 1955 to present, which present was like 1994 or something like that. And I went through every year and I picked out 5 songs from each year that I thought were like big songs. I think I have this tape somewhere, by the way. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, of course you do.
But I put clips of songs. I'd be like 1955, and then I'd play like 5 clips of songs from each year, and I turned that in as a project. And the teacher was like, "I listened to your tape," and I was like, "Oh yeah, what'd you think?" She goes, "How long did that take?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. A long time. It took a long time to do." She goes, "I bet." So, but yeah, we're getting off on a tangent here. So Pat, when you started working as a bridge engineer, did you just slide into a job right after college or what?
No, I graduated college in December of 1999, and now we're going to get into Washington politics history here, but that's what it is. November 1999, Tim Eyman passed his first initiative where suddenly car tabs were $30. So the DOT was going to hire 6 college graduates, and I was on that list of 6. And then that bill passed, and the DOT lost their funding, so they didn't hire any.
Oh,
so I spent 4 years doing other things. Well, it was fine. I spent 4 years doing other things. I designed buildings in Spokane, and I lived in Anacortes designing houses.
Wow.
And then after 4 years of college, I applied for a job at the DOT and I got hired.
Wow.
And that was it. So, and I wasn't instant success at the DOT. I've always been an awkward person, and I awkwardly transitioned there as well. But eventually found my place and did really, really well.
That's awesome, man. So you've actually designed some bridges, correct?
In Washington State, North Carolina, South Carolina, a little bit in Virginia, but most of it's Washington because that's where my time was the most. But yeah, I've designed bridges in Tacoma. I've done a bunch of sign structures in Seattle. I did a bridge in Burlington, a bunch in Spokane, one in Vancouver that was really unique.
Wow.
I've loaded. You remember the bridge in Minneapolis that failed that all those years ago that a bunch of people died?
Yeah. I do remember that.
Okay, so after that bridge failed, every state DOT had to analyze their trusses in a particular way. And I've analyzed some of the trusses that are just, it spans the Columbia River. I did the Longview Kelso Bridge, which was the longest bridge of its type in the world at the time it was built.
Wow.
And yeah, and trust engineering, you think an engineer would be really good at trusses because, engineers do things with sticks and stuff, but rarely do we build bridges like that anymore. And I was one of like 3 people at the DOT that really understood trusses well. And I got to do some really, really cool stuff.
That is awesome, man. That's really that might be the most interesting post-college stuff that I could think of that any of my friends have done. I have friends that went on to work at ESPN and went on to be actors, but that's really cool stuff.
I've spoken 10 times at National Bridge Engineering conferences. I had an article I wrote published in a magazine, and I'm working on my second.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what's cool about that is the coolest thing about construction, and you're kind of like the first step of construction, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I couldn't pound a rivet in a bridge to save my life.
But you know what I mean? You're like the design guy, right? Yeah. So but the coolest thing about that is you're able to see the entire thing from way before start to finish, and you're like, I did that right there, and you could show that you could show that to your kids' kids could show that to their kids, and so on. I think that's so cool. Hopefully you've kept track of all these locations and everything, because that's so cool, man.
I do. I take my wife and kids there.
That's awesome. So, that's fun.
But you got to think of it in a little broader perspective, because one of the things is there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and I flirt with that line all the time. And I have to be humble in what I do, because I'm really good at this really neat thing, but there's so many things I'm terrible at. I can't cook. I can't tell you what looks good. I can't, I couldn't do what you do to save my life. And if I could do it, with all due respect to you, I'd be bored out of my mind, because it's just not my thing. It's your thing,
Yeah.
So bridges is my thing, and I'm really good at it. I love it. I'm passionate about it. And I have to recognize that that's just one little piece of the broader fabric we all put together. And so now, that's Pat, my thread, and I'm good with it.
That's awesome, man. Like you said, I could not do what you did. Our brains just work completely different. Even if I wanted to do what you did, there's no way I probably could, which is a good thing, because if I want people walking or driving over bridges, I don't think you want people walking over and driving over my bridges. So let's keep Pat Gallagher doing the bridges, and I'll take care of this little podcast over here.
But I love it. That's a great plan.
Now, Pat, has bridge technology changed at all since you started working in the industry there?
Well, sort of. Yes, things change. And if you really want me to get into the details of that, I'd probably put you to sleep. But one of the things that's changed that I really took a lot of initiative at the DOT was this concept of accelerated bridge construction.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want me, I can explain it to you if you'd like, but that's really the tip of the cutting edge of bridge engineering, is applying accelerated bridge construction techniques to speed up bridge construction so that we don't have to close freeways forever while they rebuild them in the inner city. And I helped write the policy for WSDOT on that. That was my my little baby there when I left.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So obviously the technology is always going to be, they can have bigger machinery and they could probably do things. Well, you know what? Things can get held up by politics, like you said, so sometimes things can't get done faster than they used to back in the day. Cause some of these bridges, these famous bridges, I would see a documentary on one of these bridges, these like really famous bridges, and they're like, yes, this bridge went up in 18 months or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, how? How did that go up that fast?
They killed 7 laborers doing it, and
people dying, and
17 people went death pounding rivets. And,
right.
There's no more fish swimming in the rivers, but they got it done real fast.
Right. So. Yeah. I guess there's no strict unions and stuff like that back then. But so speaking of famous bridges, what are some of your favorite bridges? Like what bridges, other than your bridges, of course, because those are your babies, but
obviously those are the best ones out there.
But what are your favorite bridges that, some people might know?
Well, my favorite, anything with curves, suspension bridges and arches are my favorites. My favorite bridge in Washington State is one you probably don't even realize exists. It's the East Trent Avenue Bridge in Spokane. And the reason why there's lots of reasons why I love that bridge. I love an arch bridge because 1, it's curved. 2, the curvature of the arch works perfectly with the materials holding up the load. And 3, it's a Loudon arch. And I invented the Loudon arch 100 years after it was invented.
Wow.
So a Loudon arch is basically an arch that carries dirt that carries the road. And every time you drive over a bridge, you hear that thump as you hit it.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you're going from a soft, squishy dirt type structure, which is the road, to a rigid bridge. And that transition makes that bump as you hit one from one to the other.
Yeah.
And so if you carry the dirt over the river with it, that whole prism, there's no bump. And it's just a beautiful structure. It has these large overhangs. I don't even know if it's still in Spokane. They probably tore it down because it's in terrible shape. But I love arch bridges. The stone arch. Oh man, wars are terrible on bridges because they're the first thing that blow up. World War II destroyed so many good arch bridges in Europe.
Oh, that sucks.
And I know. So let's just stop killing each other, please. So, but no, I love those old stone. Those stone arch bridges are thousands of years old and they're still there. So that's my favorite. Definitely an arch bridge.
Is the Brooklyn Bridge an arch bridge? Like, is that like what is that? Is that, I don't know the different kinds of, I know that if I look at them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a different kind of bridge than that one over there. But I don't know all the different names of all these, bridges and types, what they are. But like, that's a cool looking bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge is a famous bridge.
So the Brooklyn Bridge is the exact type structure that the pedestrian bridge at Isaac Evans Park is. It's a suspension bridge.
Gotcha. I like that bridge.
So, and that is the suspension bridge is my second favorite type.
Oh, okay.
So the Tacoma Narrows is the same as a Brooklyn Bridge, and I got to walk on the cables of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
what?
I've been to the top of those towers 3 times, and one time I walked down the cable.
Whoa! Like, are you able to hold on to the things, or is it you're just walking on this cable like as a trapeze guy?
As a trapeze artist, I did a few flips from one cable to the other.
Oh god!
Slow traffic.
It gives me anxiety.
There's handrails, and I was on a double lanyard system.
Wow.
If you fall off of that, you just look like an idiot dangling there for all the traffic to see. Right. And I didn't do that. I walked down legit.
Driving by, and I'm like, is that Pat Gallagher? Yeah, no, and then there's of course the Golden Gate Bridge.
So that's also a suspension bridge.
Yeah,
I love it. It's a beautiful bridge. The whole thing, the color match of the surroundings, fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, is that the most famous bridge in the world, or is it the Tower Bridge, or what is the most famous bridge in the world? Do you know?
Well, that's a very vague question because I think a lot of it is relative to where you live, and I don't know how you'd quantify
gauge it.
that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The most famous one's probably the Brooklyn Bridge because of the alliteration, the double B, Brooklyn Bridge. Everybody loves that, and how many times you hear as a kid, if everybody else jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you? So
right.
That's probably it. Actually, for those reasons.
Are you aware of the story of the old London Bridge?
I am. It's in Arizona, Lake Havasu.
Isn't that? Dude, that story is crazy to me. Like what they did with that thing. I think that's fascinating because like when I first moved here, they would post pictures of, hey, I'm at the London Bridge. I'm like, you're at the London Bridge. I'm like, I'm so confused of what.
Right.
Why is that in Lake Havasu? Yeah. So like I guess they were developing that community in like the 60s, and some dude like bought the old London Bridge, which I guess that was built in like the 1800s or something like that.
That's fabulous. That's Arizona's claim to bridge fame.
Right. And they took that apart piece by piece, numbered each one.
It was built in pieces, so it was easy to take it apart in pieces.
It's crazy.
It was a stone arch.
It's
so,
wild.
you just pick up the rocks and put them back over here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the hard part would be transporting it, right? Jeez.
Transporting and putting it all back together the right way.
Right. So, yeah, they, I don't know when they started building it, but probably late 60s. And they finally finished it in 1971. I guess it was 3 years of construction. Yeah. So, interesting thing. So, are you well-versed in the different states and like what bridges they're known for and stuff like that? Or?
Well, I mean, to some degree, absolutely. I mean, I've been to a bunch of states, and I'm in the bridge business, so you bet I can. That's
awesome. That's fascinating, man. Like that'd be cool to, like, you said you've done a lot of speeches, and it's funny because I glanced at your LinkedIn page, and that thing has some serious accomplishments on it. I was like, holy moly, dude! Like it's wild. Like looking at your all your stuff on there that's listed, it's like it's crazy, and I'm sure that's not even all of it. So that's pretty cool to like see someone that has that kind of layout of information that's listed out there.
I've used LinkedIn to get 3 or 4 jobs, so it's
wow.
I baby that LinkedIn page a lot.
That's awesome.
Because it serves me
smart.
Well. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So now, Pat, along with your professional accomplishments, you mentioned to me that you also had a midlife crisis of some sort, or explain that.
I did, absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell you. My wife and I have been married 20 years, and the first 14 years were really rough. And I told you that one of the best things I did was my proposal. And shortly after getting married, it was rough. And we're both type A, firstborn. We didn't come from. We came from good families, but they weren't families where everything was ideal like you'd like to see it.
Like Leave It to Beaver and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we had kind of 3 phases in the first 14 years. The first phase was the let's fight phase. Then there was the let's draw lines phase, and then there was the apathy phase where like I don't even care. And when you get to that point in a relationship, that is the worst. It's like, glad you have a heartbeat, I guess. Whatever, leave me alone. Yeah. And we got to a point after 14 years, we decided we're either going to change everything about our life or we're going to get divorced. And there's 2 elements to the story I want to go down if you want to hear the whole thing.
Sure.
But the marriage aspect of it was, we decided we're going to stay together and we're going to change everything. And so it was June 8th, 2015. I don't know why I remember dates so well, but we decided we're going to change everything, and we did. And suddenly, we had secrets we didn't need to keep from each other. We share a Facebook account because that keeps us accountable in the sense that, if I didn't know my wife was like, I'm going to say stupid stuff on there. And so, anyways, we changed everything about our relationship. We started going out on dates again. I tell my kids, we used to be young. We used to hold hands and kiss and make out like, young people do.
Yeah.
And then one day that stopped. And, what happened? I think, having kids certainly distracts you. I think newlyweds struggle with the, relationship with their parents and how that needs to change, and they don't change that very well. And so when we decided to change everything was different. We go out on dates, we talk, and I like to tell people that men bond with their wives physically, men bond emotionally. And what's the first thing a man says to a wife when he's mad at her is, I'm not talking to you. The first thing she says to him is, you ain't getting any. And,
right.
Those 2 things should never be a weapon used against each other. And so anyway, this isn't about my marriage entirely, but so we got to this point, we're going to change everything. And we did. And, church is a part of my life. And I had a very active life in Washington State. I was on city council. I had my own business. I was doing great at the DOT. And, my life at home sucked. And I had to, when we got to this point, I just gave all that up. And I put my wife first, my family first. And every door in Washington State we had, it's like, God closed every door at home and opened this pathway to North Carolina. And when we decided to stay together, we gave up everything we were doing. And I basically said, no thanks to this great career I had, the life on city council, my own business. And, I'm not going to get all religious on you, but there is definitely, God closed every door in Centralia and paved the way to North Carolina. And we came here and we have a great life, but we started over with no distractions. It was just us, just our kids.
That's cool.
And
man.
my wife and I get along good. We talk without getting mad at each other. We go out on dates. We, put the kids to bed at a decent time. And then it's mom and dad time to, hey, leave us alone, because our relationship matters. And
Right.
Another element to this was I was on the city council in Centralia, and I was, this isn't political, but I got helped get elected to the Republican Party,
Mm-hmm.
and my Republican people that I helped get elected, people I knew personally and well, passed a bill in Olympia to privatize DOT engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did it in response to a question I asked one of them that made this senator look bad. And so they privatized the DOT work at about the same time my wife and I had our little revelation, and it just became clear we got to get the heck out of here and start over.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
everything was,
oh, no.
yeah.
Well,
There's some
hey,
good conspiracy theories behind that if you ever want to hear them.
good. I'm glad you got out.
Well, I am too. I remember going to one of these DOT projects I worked on, and the governor was there bragging about how great this design build project was. And I'm like, you don't even know what the heck you're talking about. It was a good project, but it was a terrible delivery method. And that's a whole nother discussion.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
coming to North Carolina was one of the best decisions we made, because it gave us a chance to start fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And get away from a background that we didn't need in our lives anymore.
Yeah, no, there is something to that, man. Like, it certainly helped me, because in Washington, I was, with the type of work I was looking for, I was like, all right, well, I can't get a job. And if I can get a job doing this, it's not paying anything. So why not move somewhere where they are hiring and the housing is cheaper? And I can actually, at that point in time, I was like, I could still, go out and have fun so it's like, okay, well, this makes sense. And I told my parents this, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving down to Arizona. And they're like, why not? And I was like, yeah,
Isn't your mom from Arizona?
Well, my dad grew up here and my parents met here. So,
okay.
So they were always like, yeah, you'd probably like it down there, man. Like it's nice, most of the year. And, the cost of living is better. And I mean, there's lots of benefits to living here. I think it's a nice place. So, and it's cool. Like, it's like one of those things where I'm sure that some of where you are right now looks wildly different than, where you grew up. And the weather's different. And, like you were saying at the beginning of the show, like your kids, if you moved back, your kids wouldn't get like that. It's dark all the time. And,
right.
Especially that's right. One of those things where, kicking back to like what we were talking about earlier, the summers, we remember the summers so vividly because up in Seattle, it doesn't get dark until like 10 o'clock. So of course we're going to remember the summers a lot there, right? I mean, it's like, it's the best time of year in Seattle, and it lasts like twice as long. So you're like, man, this is great. But then, it gets dark and cloudy, and people don't realize that the hardest thing about Seattle for people because it does affect people differently. It's not the rain. It rains, it rains everywhere. It rains here in the desert, but it's the dark gray clouds.
If you can make it through March, alive, good for you, because that's really achieving something. It would just, I would be depressed too much. And even now, living in North Carolina, when it's rainy for like 3 days in a row, we're all in a bad mood and jumping down each other's throats. Like, I tell everybody, the record number of rainy days in a row in Raleigh is 12.
Whoa.
The record number of rainy days in a row in Centralia is 55.
Wow. That's wild. That's crazy, man. 12 to 55.
Yeah,
that's
12. Yeah, big deal.
So, Pat, I don't know if this is part of your midlife crisis or if this is something that you just got into afterwards, but you talked about motorcycles and guns. Do those kind of like have a correlation, or did you get into those kind of at the same time, or?
Got into those earlier than that. Motorcycles I got into, I mentioned I had two girlfriends named Sarah. The first one, her dad was into motorcycles, and I just loved them. And I wanted one bad. I was 21. If I would have gotten one at 21, I'd have been dead because I would have killed myself.
That's a bunch of my friends got motorcycles right around. It's always around that right around that time, 21 to 24, and that's what happens, man.
So I got my first motorcycle at 30 years old, and by then I had a family. I was more careful. I took a safety class, and I ride my motorcycle like a little old lady would ride a motorcycle. but I have fun with it. And
Yeah.
most of my kids love it. And I've ridden it all over, the East Coast and the West Coast.
Right on.
But guns is kind of a funny story. Okay. I know this isn't political, but this is a political thing for
You've said
the
that like
reason
100
you're
times.
follow me for a minute. So right after Obama got elected, my dad told me, Pat, you need to go buy a gun right away because Barack Obama's going to take them away from you. So I did. I went to Cabela's. I spent $600, bought myself a gun that shot big bullets, and I was one of them. And I kept it as a secret, and I hid it from my wife forever, which is a dumb idea.
Oh, no.
But when I finally revealed it to her that I got it, which another bad marriage decision after another, I started to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And, I'm not one of these guys that, God, golden guns, let's go kill them. But I do have fun. I take my kids shooting guns, and, I have guns in my house and they're stored properly.
Yeah.
I have no desire to kill anybody. It's just I don't know. It's just kind of a primal thing, I think, being able to harness so much power and, go poke a hole in a piece of paper with it is really all I ever do. But, it's just the idea, I guess. And we really enjoy it. All of us, except my wife. She doesn't like guns, but
I think it's healthy knowing how to shoot a gun. Yeah, no, I definitely think it's a good thing to know how to be able to shoot a firearm, protect yourself if you need to. I don't know if you should have an Uzi or something like that. But,
yeah, this isn't a political show, but there's definitely sane, normal people who enjoy guns also, not just the wackos that make the news.
All right, so Pat, now you mentioned that you had a secret fight with my brother. What was this? What did you had a secret fight with Andy Matlock?
Oh, this is funny.
What is going on here? What is this?
Yeah, so, oh golly, I was walking home from Dick Scobee Elementary one time, from Dick Scobee to my house, and your brother was walking down the street just doing his thing, and I don't know, we just decided to get in a fight. I don't even know why. It was just the thing, We were in somebody's front yard and, starting our fight, and I kicked him in the stomach, and he curled over and started to cry, and I hurt him. I knocked the wind out of him, and I remember telling him, "Don't tell your brother. He's going to beat me up." and that was it. Just I think all I did is I just kicked him in the stomach, knocked the wind out of him.
Right.
And I was more afraid of you and your retaliation than I was of him getting up and beating me up. I don't even know why we fought. It was just
just kids. Kids. Right.
No filter. Just say it, do it, whatever. Let's go. Bring it on.
Well, you know what? Next time I see you, Pat, I swear to God. No, just check.
I don't even know where I live.
Yeah, I know. Oh boy, that's funny, man. Yeah, no. Hey, you know what? My brother never told me. So there you go. There you go. It's
good.
It's what, like 25 years later.
It was a dumb place too. It was like in some random person's front yard on M Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Didn't you say that you grew up in what was the house that you grew up in? It was like 9. You said it was
My
9.
address was 911.
No, isn't that
before there was 911? I lived at 911 14th Street.
No, didn't you once tell me that place was like one of the oldest houses in the state? Or I don't know if it's in the state, but in the city. Did you tell me that once?
In the area for sure. When that part of Auburn was not Auburn and rural farmland, that was like the original farmhouse.
Wow.
So it is still there, 911 14th Street, and but they used to have all that property that's now neighborhoods and Dick Scobee Elementary and who the heck else knows what else. But we did. I mean, we rented it, but it was a neat old house with a lot of old history and stories. And
so back in the day, it was that house and the Neely mansion back in the old days.
that might have been it. It's a similar era.
Right? No, I remember, it's funny, speaking of the Neely mansion, we'd always pass that going to Flaming Geyser. Remember that Flaming Geyser?
Yeah.
And I like going to Flaming Geyser. That was like, so for people that aren't aware what the heck Flaming Geyser is, it was like this state park, which it's hilariously named the Flaming Geyser because there was like this natural methane gas or something like that used to come up through the bottom of the earth, or I don't know where, but like it was constantly lit up. But it was like by the time we were hanging out there, I guess the flame used to be like pretty high. It used to be this giant flame. But when we were hanging out there, it was like, maybe a little bit bigger than a Bic lighter. It was.
I don't ever remember seeing it flame.
You'd have to. So basically, people would always like put it out. They would take like water and they'd put it out. I don't know why, just being, I think I did it once too. But you could light it. You could literally light it and it would flame up, and it, you know, it wasn't big or anything like that. But I guess, check this out. That actually ran out of gas in 2016. So like, it's like 5 years ago it ran out. It finally ran out because it used to get like 5 feet high, I guess, or like 6 feet high or something like that in the air. And then by the time we were there, it was like this little flame. And then now it's gone.
Okay.
So, but they still.
The Geyser Memorial State Park.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, but remember we were hiking, we'd go hiking up in that area, you know, up on those little trails, and we're like, you know what? These trails are okay, but let's go like off the trails, and we'd end up in like some weird backyard of some person's house. We're like, okay, maybe we should, you know, before old man Gallagher pulls his gun on me, maybe we should turn around and go back down this hill here.
It's like old man Gallagher's gonna get you.
Right?
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, exactly. So
my first girlfriend, Sarah, I asked her out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I had like a little apple cider, bubbly apple cider, drink a little picnic on the edge of the river. Yeah.
Wow.
My early romantic days.
Awesome.
It
Nice.
worked on her, so it worked out good.
Right on. Now you had this, now back in the day, I think it was, God, I don't know what was that car that you had that was like perfect for floating? Like, cause we'd throw our tubes in the back. Was it like
Dodge Rampage?
Was it a Rampage? It wasn't like a Brat. What was that? It was
it was Dodge's version of the Brat. It was Dodge's El Camino.
Right.
Little mini El Camino. It was a Dodge Rampage.
That's awesome. Yes. And then I don't see those driving around much anymore. Was that?
You don't see mine driving around either. I did what every 19-year-old kid does, and I totaled it.
Oh, okay. Where did you wreck it? How did you wreck it?
I was going to school. I'm an engineering student. I'm, nerd before nerds were cool. I was going to engineering. I was going to take a test at the community college, and I was running late, and I was in a hurry. And there was a road, a turnoff onto 320th Street, where I pulled right out in front of somebody, like stupid turn, and they T-boned me, and hit my front fender instead of my door, and totaled my car. The lady went away on the stretcher, and I said, "Hey, I got to leave and go take a test." And that's what I did. I should have stuck around and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wish you well." No, that's what an adult says.
Holy
not
crap!
What
that is amazing.
Pat says.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you, oh man,
you really are kind of like the real life, and you've mentioned this before, even in this episode. You're like really like the Revenge of the Nerds. You're like the real life story.
Yeah, and
right?
I got lucky with my wife. It's like one ugly duckling married the next, married another, and if I could look at my life
but now, wait, not your wife.
With my eyes back then, I wouldn't believe it.
Wait, you didn't call your wife an ugly duckling?
Well, when she was younger, she was.
Oh,
and
okay.
I were both, in the same cloth when we were kids.
Gotcha.
And,
okay.
She grew into, the beautiful, amazing woman she is now. But, she didn't start that way like me. So.
Gotcha. Okay. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
because she might be listening.
Right. Yeah, because it's funny because you were right, man. Like when we were growing up, it was still that era. It's hard to even explain now because there's, it's been so many years now that, I mean, like you have Bill Gates and you have Steve Jobs and you have all these guys that are like, straight up nerds they are the cool people. They're the cool people now. The nerdy guys were not the cool guys back in the day. If you watch Revenge of the Nerds, it wasn't, that's a little extreme, but it was still kind of like that. Yeah. A little embellishing, but you said that there's times.
I love it when a younger adult I meet says, "Oh, I'm such a nerd."
Yeah, no.
And what I want to tell them is, if you haven't felt the steel rim of a garbage can on your thighs or opened a locker from the inside, you have no idea what a nerd actually is.
Do you know what the inside of a toilet bowl tastes like? Then you are not a nerd. I am sorry, kid. You are not a nerd.
You like Star Wars. That's not nerdy anymore. Sorry.
You are not a nerd. Yeah. So congratulations, Pat. You are now a nerd, and it is cool to be a nerd. So there you go, buddy.
That's right.
That's awesome.
The era of the nerd has finally come. So
there you go. It's come full circle. And now you're a bridge engineer, and you've designed bridges all over the country, and Have you ever designed anything like outside of the country or?
I've been to 46 states and 9 countries.
Damn. And that's awesome.
I've been to China, saw lots of bridges there, but as far as designing stuff, I did go to Haiti after the earthquake in 2010, and afterwards I did a building design of a church that got destroyed. That's cool. I don't know if they ever built my plan because Haiti's design loads are crazy high, and they just don't have the infrastructure to do it. But
yeah. So
yeah, that's about it. Just a building in Haiti, but. Now, I've been to other places of the world and seen other bridges and buildings, but
wow, that's cool, man. That's really cool. And I'm not just saying that. It's fascinating stuff, especially to a guy that isn't in that world. So I'm grateful that you were here to explain some of the insight. I'm sure you could have, done a lot more, but I only have so much time I could spend on this stuff. Maybe we'll have to have you back on again.
Yeah, anytime you'd like. I love this. This was a great time, Josh.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun.
It's a shame we lost touch all those years because I really enjoyed talking to you today. We should do this more often.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And again, this is partly why I'm doing this show is because it forces me to talk to, old friends and bring up old memories. So it's awesome and to catch up. And that's exactly what we did. So maybe next time we're both back in Auburn, we'll have to grab a drink. Okay, how about next time you're in Phoenix or I'm in Raleigh?
Raleigh, yes.
Raleigh. Oh, sorry, Raleigh.
That'd be great. We'll have to have a drink together.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude,
right, Josh,
we'll talk again, and hopefully you and the family stay safe and remain healthy. And have a good one, Pat.
You too, Josh. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Later, buddy. Thank you for tuning in to the Josh and Friends podcast. If you have any questions or comments about today's show, feel free to leave a message in the comment section below. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow the show. And check out some of the video clips posted on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Josh, and thank you for being a friend.